So hi everyone. Today I'll be presenting Ford Motor. I will conduct a fundamental analysis of the company and to see if Ford is actually a good investment or not. First, this is the table of contents of what will be covered. First, I went through some quick information about Ford as a company, what they're doing. Then I'll talk about their management, then their ability to generate profit and growth during the years. And I will give my relative and intrinsic values for the company and compare that to the current price that they're being traded in the market right now. And afterwards, I'll just come to a conclusion of whether we should invest in Ford. First, about the company as a whole, Ford was founded in 1903 by Henry Ford, and it's been one of the leaders in the automotive industry. Ford is famous for its SUV, trucks, commercial vehicles, and because the cars are made for day-to-day usage, it's no wonder that the firm has gained a lot of favor from most of its car users. So in terms of management, we see Ford offers good compensation and benefits to its employees, such as vacation, working flexibility, and healthcare. However, as for the board, I think they are being overpaid for the company because most of the executives are paid at roughly about 1 million per year, and that's not to say there are also being given millions of stock awards. So even though Ford has not been doing so well lately, they're being paid the same amount. So the compensation and salaries are not really tied to the firm's performance, and that is a very big concern about the management. And another reason is that Ford seems to have a lot of control involvement from the Ford family, and it has been reflected in their stock. So, for example, if you own stock, you would normally have one voting right, but if you're a Ford family member, you have 16 voting rights. So which means that Ford family will have a lot of influence whenever there is a voting event, and which can also mean that the shareholders may not be really listened to, So that is also another big concern about the management. So let's look at their financials to see how good they are at producing money and making profit. So the free cash flow has had a negative 1% in their growth rate on average from 2016 to 2020. However, if you look at the pattern, overall Ford has free cash flow, but they do not seem to producing a consistently high free cash flow over years. So we see some fluctuations here and there in 2018, 2019. So it's not a bad sign, but it's also not a really strong sign when you talk about a company's free cash flow. So let's turn into profitability. So the operating margin has been at around close to 4 in 2016, but has since then decreasing to 2% in 2018. And the same thing happened to their net margin. So both see a decreasing pattern, which means that Ford is losing profit over a year. And the same thing happened from 2018 to 2020. And we have to remember in 2019, 2020, which was during COVID, income, their net income or an operating income took a big hit. But that is not the only reason why I think Ford is not doing well, because their their margins have been decreasing pre-COVID. So COVID is not the only reason that affects Ford's profits. So let's turn to the balance sheet. In terms of return on asset, Ford's ROA is is pretty low, below 3%, and the number is was decreasing from 2016 to 2018. The financial leverage was hovering at about 8 to 7, which I think is a pretty high number. The ROE was above 10%, which is a good thing, but we have to notice the ROE and the ROA also decrease over the year. So if you have for a growing company, we should see an increase in the ROA and ROE. And the same thing happened from 2018 to 2020. But remember, we have to acknowledge the fact that their financial leverage is actually increasing, which means that even though Ford is not making any more money, they're getting more debt. So the question is, how do they pay back most of this debt? And if we actually take a step further, we took the net debt of 136 billion as of today, and we divide that by 12 billion, which is their free cash flow on average in 5 years. We'll arrive at the number 11. So it means that it will take Ford roughly 11 years to pay back all of the debts, given the fact that Ford will not do anything in that 11 years. So they're just paying back off its debt, and it will take them 11 years to finish that. And I think 11 years is a pretty high number. So that is also another big X for the company. In terms of sales growth, the net income growth both see a decreasing pattern. Their sales growth rate is -4 on average in 4 years. However, before that, it's been roughly about 2 to 3%, which is not really high as well. And because of that reason, I think the firm does not have, or if they do, it will be a very weak economic mode. And in terms of the relative ratio, we see in 2019, the firm has 23.25 in their price to earnings ratio, and that's the highest in the period. But the catch is that they produce a very low net income that year, so that really pumped up their PE ratio, and we compared the yield. The yield rate between Ford stock in 2020 and the Treasury bond, we see there's not much of a great difference. So why would you want to pay such a large money for a company like Ford with not so high of a return? So that signals that the company is somewhat overvalued. So for final step, we run through some valuation. So I have calculated their WACC at 6.44%, and which means of course not too risky as investment, which is pretty solid. And for the relative and intrinsic value, I have $19.61 and $2.81 respectively. So the relative value is a little bit below the current market, which is $19.87. However, the intrinsic value using the discounted cash flow model, it suggests that Ford is being very overvalued compared to what is currently trading right now. But I also have to say that I was pretty conservative about Ford's growth, and after looking at their management, their financials, I just think that the company should not be worth what it is right now. And to recap, Ford has high free cash flow, is very unstable. There has high debt, which raises concerns about how they are able to handle that. They don't have a moat, and their financials are shaky. And for those reasons, I think Ford is a sell, and it's not a very good investment. And if even if they do increase in value, I would say that's a very long and very weak growth. So that concludes my presentation. So thank you for listening.